Oh, they're gonna kill me for this one. I really like Clara, and you probably know that if you've been around for a while. In my recent discussions about Pokemon characters that is mostly fueled by all of the beautiful full art cards that I've collected, I was reminded of one of my favorite characters in Pokemon, that obviously being Clara. Now, I know not a lot of people like her because she's a bit of a weirdie, and she comes from one of the least popular games, Pokemon Sword and Shield, but hey, maybe I can convince you to leave a like because this is gonna be a 2-for-1 video with Avery as well. You all remember Avery, right? So the first DLC expansion for Pokemon Sword and Shield, the Isle of Armor, was announced and released back in 2020 and gives us a fun little adventure on this island, though they did an interesting thing after announcing the expansion by giving an update that allows you to meet one of these characters as well as a Galarian Slowpoke. Basically, you meet the character for the first time, get an idea of what their personality is gonna be like, that being very abrasive no matter which version you're playing, because oh yeah, by the way, these characters are version exclusive, but anyway, there's a Galarian Slowpoke holding things up at the train station and so you have to capture it. From here you also learn about the Isle of Armor that you'll be able to visit at a later time, or if you're playing through it now you can just go ahead and do everything all at once, but once that moment finally comes, Clara and Avery are gonna be again very abrasive toward you. For Pokemon Sword and Shield, the main rival was Hop, and he had a few complaints here and there. While I think he was a fine character, I think what more people really wanted was a rival who was a little mean to them, or at least wasn't just your typical friendly friend and had a little more conflict. So then at least in the Isle of Armor, Avery and Clara were a bit of a treat. Definitely not as serious as someone like Silver in the past, rather they're mostly goofy. I get a little bit of Jesse and James vibes from them, though we never actually really see them interact, again because they are version exclusive. While they generally play the same role, they obviously have very different personalities, and in all honesty I really would have loved to see them interact with each other. I bet they would have been a lot more competitive with each other, though maybe buddy-buddy if they were to team up against somebody else. So anyway, Clara's backstory is actually kind of funny. She wanted to break out as a pop singer using her cuteness as her main draw. While she apparently held some energetic concerts and other events, she didn't really sell that much of her debut album. When that didn't work out, she tried to become a gym leader, which was even harder, so she gave up on that after 2 days and decided to go to the Isle of Armor to try and train. Yeah, okay, that is really funny. Meanwhile, Avery's backstory is actually a little sad. He comes from a long line of powerful psychic-type trainers. And not just psychic-type trainers, but actual psychic users. So he was expected to take the place of a psychic-type gym leader, though he isn't able to do that, and even then his psychic abilities are apparently lacking, only being able to use telepathy and not anything else. But I mean, hey man, that is pretty impressive, just the fact that he keeps those Pokeballs floating around his hat the whole time. So that is why he's here on the Isle of Armor wanting to train. If anything, they both kind of fit into the themes of Pokemon Sword and Shield in different ways. Clara is really having a hard time trying to build her own legacy, while Avery is having a hard time living up to the one that's expected of him. Now, I'm not saying they're really deep characters or anything, but when you actually read their league cards, you start to feel for them a little. Well, if anything, maybe you might just feel pity for Avery and a little annoyed by Clara for giving things up too quickly. Anyway, the actual battles against them on the Isle of Armor aren't all that difficult, and overall, I think after you finish the main story of the Isle of Armor, it kind of feels like there isn't too much going on here, but at the very least, the events that unfold here are actually pretty funny. After you both get to the dojo and meet Mustard, he gives you the dojo uniforms to join, but when your rival is about to receive theirs, it's snagged by a Galarian Slowpoke, which by the way is actually really fast, and a uniform is split up between 3 of them and they run off and you have to chase them down on your bike. It's a really fun time, just for the hilarity of it all, actually seeing a bunch of Slowpoke run really fast. And as usual, you as a player are the only one who can actually do anything, so you basically show up your rival at every step of the challenges. And yeah, for the most part, these are your rivals, even though the Isle of Armor story isn't that long, but I love that they don't really stop being toxic the entire time. I'm crying, man, this is a grown-ass woman and a grown-ass man beefing with a literal child. The final battle of the story ending with them actually cheating by laying traps down before the battle, which is one of the first times we've seen this in a Pokemon game, and I'm honestly a big fan of it. It's not really a way of making things more difficult for you, but I think it is a really funny in-character thing that happens, and it gives one more layer to that battle. And while they're called out for their behavior, I like that they're not really villainized all too much, because at the end of it, they're still friends with everybody else and are even invited to the Galarian Star Tournament, which by the way brings up a weird little detail. Okay, so basically Clara being a poison-type trainer and Avery being a psychic-type trainer, they share a signature Pokemon in Galarian Slowbro, which is a psychic and poison type. Though I feel like that kind of takes away from their individuality, which they already have to share a spot being version-exclusive rivals. Though as you know in the Crown Tundra DLC, we ended up getting Galarian Slowking, which retroactively has become Avery's signature Pokemon. Again, they're both still the same type, but I think it makes a lot more sense. While they're both really goofy Pokemon and are kind of played as jokes, Galarian Slowbro is a bit more of a cute dopey, and that works with Clara. Galarian Slowking seems like it's planning something, has a little bit of a sinister vibe, but in a way it still is kind of looked down on a bit for its weird design, and that fits with Avery. Once again, I really do wish that these characters got to interact a bit more with each other, because there is a TCG product that shows them together, and I wish that Galarian Slowbro and Galarian Slowking were introduced at the same time so that they could be with each trainer from the very beginning. The anime would have been a really good opportunity to see that happen, but as we know, Journeys was doing something a little different, and so it didn't adapt Sword and Shield 1-to-1 from the very beginning to the very end. And while Journeys still turned out fine and there are some really fun episodes removed from Sword and Shield, it does kind of feel bad when we miss out on characters like this who could have been adapted a little better in a different medium. That's why in my mind the Zaktoshi Sword and Shield rewrite is canon, though they did actually appear in some animated form. In the bonus episode of Twilight Wings, they were seen for a moment when Leon goes to the Isle of Armor to talk to Mustard, but that is about it. You can only see them for a bit. Avery is using his telepathy to bully someone, and then Clara is out in the wild collecting max mushrooms. Meanwhile, in Pokemon Masters, the video game I always love to bring up in these kinds of videos, they actually weren't added until recently, though that event is a really fun one, where they join Greta of the Battle Arena for some training. Though their interactions are really funny, they do a lot of asides to the camera, and of course are beefing with each other, while also talking up a big game even though they're not really amazing trainers. While the event was pretty short, I'm at least glad that I got Clara in the game because she's a pretty good unit, along with her Galarian Slowbro, but if anything, this event just really shows how great Clara and Avery are together. I'm not exactly saying it should have been like this in the video game because I understand the idea to have only one rival at a time in the Isle of Armor, but I just really do think it was a missed opportunity to wait so long to actually unite them. Though now's the time to talk about the trading card game, and yeah, they got some really nice full art cards. I'm a big fan of the Clara one, which I tried my hardest to pull in Chilling Reign, but as you may know, that set was a little miserable to pull from, so I ended up just buying the full art later on. And Clara ended up being a pretty decent card in the game itself, not amazing, but definitely one that most people would play at least one of. So she was given a reprint in the Premium Tournament Collection, which I'm a big fan of because we got a deck box and sleeves, and the actual artwork in the card itself, I think it's cool, though I prefer the original one. But really what I do want is just physical versions of the League cards in Sword and Shield. Honestly, that is one of my favorite features of this game. While I definitely don't want the sports theming to carry over into every Pokemon game in the future, I think it was a fun time in Sword and Shield because of the different presentation we got to see. The League cards are where we get some of the additional information like their backstories, and also I think it's really nice that there are two different versions for every character. Both Clara and Avery have one that features them training, and I think that's really nice because even though these are a bunch of losers, I would love to see them achieve their dreams someday. But like, Clara's standard League card is crazy because her Slowbro is all warped in the back, meaning that she probably edited her photo in some way. Like, geez, what is Pokemon implying with this? Though for all these reasons, these are actually some of my favorite characters from Sword and Shield. And sure, while I really have loved Clara's design since day one, I really do appreciate Avery as well. Once again, I think they're a really hilarious duo, and I would love to see them in even more. They both really kind of fit into the story of Sword and Shield, where everybody is trying their hardest to be the very best. We see this in the video game with how everything is presented as a giant sports tournament and how everybody shows up at the very end once again, and how Leon is presented as this unbeatable champion, but obviously we know that you as the protagonist are going to be the one to beat them. But it is still really fun to see everybody else still trying their best, and especially with the extra looks that we got to see of them in their personal lives and things like Twilight Wings. I am a big believer that Clara and Avery should have gotten their own episode of Twilight Wings, but with how they got to steal the show in the Isle of Armor, I think that works out pretty well enough. So let me know what you think in the comments below about Clara and Avery and which of the two is your favorite. I know we normally don't see them brought up in the conversation of rivals in the entire series, but let me know how you think they stack up compared to everybody else. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, hype up the video as well if you love Clara like I do. But for now, we're trudging on through the rest of the year, and I'm honestly very inspired by both Clara and Avery. If they're giant losers and never give up, then why should I? Thank you to every channel member for your continued support, including the Great Gators, ByCDICJO, Dr. Shaky, AKG413, Laserbeak316, Alex with Shiny Hunts, Leafy Lilith, Neptune, No Coco, Kyle, Mr. Vaporiz, Starshooter, Koikor13, Cemetery Hill, Cheez-It62, GatorKid509, TF, Mathaclock947, Taijirai, and Quago. If you would like to support, see your name here, get access to emotes, early videos, our members-only Discord server, and some exclusive videos, you can become a channel member today. You can also follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky as well for more memes. Anyway, this is Gatorix, and I will catch you all later.
The latest journey in the Galar region is about to begin. The Isle of Armor is your new training ground, where you're entrusted with a legendary Pokémon. Pokémon Sword Expansion Pass and Pokémon Shield Expansion Pass. Available now.